Federal Prison 163-77004. This was the identification card that I used during the 9,500 days that I lived as a federal prisoner. But it was really difficult to go through 9,500 days and to contemplate what my life will look like in the future. Just like I'm sure it's difficult for everybody going through this course to contemplate what is your life going to look like in the future. Well, you've got to begin asking questions about what success is going to look like, so that you can start architecting the plan that will lead you to becoming the success that you are destined to become. No one has more control over your future than you. And for that reason, no one should work harder for your success and your future than you. And although I can't do it for you, I can show you the strategies that leaders taught me, and they definitely taught me the importance of accountability. My name is Michael Santos, and I am the founder of Prison Professors. Prison Professors really exists for the singular reason of helping justice-impacted people work toward a better outcome. I know that virtually every person that's in the system has had various people advising them along the way, including defense attorneys, including the judge gave them a sentence, a prosecutor charged them with a crime. There are all these different stakeholders. Despite what other people have done, we have to figure out a pathway to succeed anyway. And sometimes we have to do it in really difficult circumstances. We have to prepare ourselves, not because we want the system to reward us with perhaps an extra bowl of Wheaties or a lower bunk pass or some other perk that we can navigate or negotiate while we're in prison. We have to hold ourselves accountable so that we're always on track for what we aspire to become. And I don't know what you aspire to become. I can only teach this course or offer these lessons based on what I learned while going through that lengthy journey. I learned that if I could see myself doing something with my life that is going to bring fulfillment and meaning and relevance to every day, I have a reason for executing the plan. But that plan has to have a series of both short and long-term accountability metrics. I remember when I was in prison and I was working with a mentor who was asking me, well, what is it that you want to do when you get out of prison? And I told him that I really was moved by many leaders whom I'd read about who had created literature to teach other people. And he asked me, well, tell me about one of them. And one of them was a lady by the name of Susie Welch, she was married to a CEO of General Electric at the time. His name was Jack Welch, and he was really a celebrated CEO because of the success that he had brought to his shareholders. And Susie Welch, when she wrote her book, she called it 10-10-10. And she said, anybody can advance to a higher level of success if they think in terms of these concepts of 10-10-10. And when I was telling this story to the mentor who was visiting me, he said, well, what does that mean, 10-10-10? And it said, well, every time I'm going to make a decision, I should ask myself, how is this decision I'm about to make going to influence my life in the next 10 minutes, in the next 10 months, and in the next 10 years? And when I told him that, he said, that's really good advice for anyone. But if you're going to build your career around your journey, you really need to have your own 10-10-10. And that prompting, that challenge really became the inspiration for what has become this course that I'm teaching you now, or I'm trying to teach you now, or I'm describing now, which is the Straight A Guide. And really, it's exactly what we've been going through the previous modules. First, you've got to define success. Second, you have to set goals that reflect your commitment to that success. They have to be specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound, which by now you know are the characteristics of a SMART goal. Third, you have to have the right attitude, showing 100% commitment to success as you've defined it. Fourth, you've got to aspire to something bigger. 5, you have got to take incremental action steps. But if it's a long ways away, you also have to create your own accountability metrics. And accountability metrics aren't anything new to you. When you were in school, the teachers measured your performance on aptitude tests. You'd take an aptitude test and you'd find out how you scored against numerous people. Your grades, if you earned an A, B, C, or D on your exams, right? That was a measurement of accountability. If you're into sports, you look at teammates or you look at different teams and you see how the players are performing, how fast they run the 40, how many points they score during a basketball game, how many touchdowns they score, how many passes they block, right? How many times they get on base if it's baseball. All sports are really driven by accountability metrics. You can't fake them. Either somebody wins or somebody loses. It is a zero-sum game, and every individual has to contribute to bring a victory. So with sports, it's very deliberate. It's very much focused on accountability within a specific time frame. And that's what your life has to be about if you're sincere and genuine and committed to preparing for success after prison. I have met part of my role at prison professors is to work on policy initiatives and try and change or influence the way leaders view the criminal justice system. And they don't really have a concept of what challenges people face when they come out of prison. But I know those challenges are enormous, regardless if a person is super well educated and has a history of success, or whether somebody has never had a job in their life and they have to come back to society and make it. I know there are enormous challenges. We hire formerly incarcerated people here at Prison Professors with hopes of building a bridge for them, with hopes of helping them get over the hurdle. But one lesson that I have learned after interviewing certainly more than 1,000 people is that if you don't have a solid accountability metric that has shown your commitment to goals, both short-term and long-term goals, when you come home, you are really unprepared or underprepared. This, I'll give you an example, is this young fella who used to be an emergency room physician. And so you'd think somebody who built his career as a emergency room physician, that person must be really disciplined and really deliberate and also super smart. But this guy made some decisions that led him to prison. And after he served his sentence, he went to a halfway house. The only way he could get from the halfway house to home confinement was he had to get a job. And when he went home, he thought that this would not be a problem at all getting a job. But he found out that after several months, it is very hard for a person who comes out of prison to find employment. And because he wanted to go to home confinement so bad, he went to his case manager in the halfway house and he asked them, how can I get a job? I just can't find it. I guess I'm too old, or as soon as I write down that I'm a physician, nobody wants to hire me. And I certainly can't go back to work in the medical profession. And the guy said, the only job I can lead you to right now is to be a cashier at a 7-Eleven. And the guy said, I'm going to try it. So he went to the 7-Eleven, and it happened to be a 7-Eleven that's directly across the street from the hospital where he used to be the emergency room physician. So you can imagine the humility of that, of sitting there, punching up sales for candy bars and Coca-Colas for people that used to report to him at the hospital. It's incredibly demoralizing for some people unless that plan becomes a part of your accountability metric, unless you recognize, hey, this is a stepping stone to the next phase in my career. See, when you have an accountability metric, you know I've got to do this thing here in order to get this thing here, right? If I don't do these steps, I can't make it happen. And that's what I really want you to be thinking about right now. You may not be able to do what you want to do right now, but you can certainly sow seeds that will prepare you to do what you want to do better. And I want to show you the ways that I did it. That's why I wrote the companion book to this course called Prison, My 8,344th Day. And if you look at this book, I don't know if you have access to it, but it is theoretically a part of this course on preparing for success after prison. But in the book, I really write about how I used to use these accountability metrics to start every day in prison. And you can see this is a typical day in an ongoing journey. I wrote 8,344th day is during my 23rd year of imprisonment. And you can see how I start the first paragraph. It's still dark in the housing unit when my eyes open. I press the button on my Timex Ironman watch, and I see that I have overslept. It is 1:34 in the morning on Monday. It is June 2010, my 8,344th day in prison. I overslept at 1:34. Why is that important? Because I am holding myself accountable. I am setting a path on saying, what do I need to do while I am in here to make sure that I am productive every single day? And the strategies that worked for me may not be the same strategies that you choose, but I was not adjusting for anybody else. Everybody around me expected failure from me. That's what my unit manager expected when they told me, we don't care anything about your life when you get out of prison. The only thing we care about is your commitment to security of the institution. Well, my job was different. I knew I was serving a lengthy sentence in prison, and I also knew I am going to have enormous challenges when I come home, just like any member of this community or any participant in this program is going to have enormous challenges. Just like that emergency room physician had enormous challenges that he frankly wasn't prepared to master when he got out. The more we think and contemplate and live deliberately while we're in prison, the more we empower ourselves to overcome these challenges. Regardless of how successful you may have been in the past, right now, once you're a justice impacted person, I've got to be thinking about how does the world respond to me? And in an era of unemployment where it's high, you've got to be able to differentiate yourself from people who do not have a criminal background. You've got to persuade leaders why you are the guy who can make it, why you are the guy who can become successful even if you're living in a challenging time, even if you are living in a challenging situation. An accountability metric is really what helped me. And I am confident it can help you as well. The reason that you want to prepare for success is not to impress anyone else other than the stakeholders that can potentially influence your access or your prospects for liberty, your prospects for success as you define it. If you wake up every morning and say to yourself, whatever I am doing today, it is going to advance the ball. You see, people who prepare for success after prison, they're high maintenance. They're always asking questions. What can I do better? How can I get there better? How can I differentiate myself from everybody else? Because they've got their head in the game all the time. They are holding themselves accountable. And we're going to talk more about that in the next module on awareness, keeping your head in the game. But right now, what I want you to be thinking about is what are you doing today that is advancing you to overcome obstacles you anticipate facing in the future? There is no chance that you're not going to face obstacles again in the future. Obstacles are the reality of life. overcoming those obstacles is contingent on your ability to prepare. And you should be creating these accountability metrics just like I described doing in prison, my 8,344th day, in earning freedom, conquering a 45-year sentence, in success after prison, how I earned my first $1 million. I mean, you have to begin architecting that plan and holding yourself accountable in ways that will lead to your success. One of the ways that it worked for me when I was in prison was measuring things that I could control. And some of those you see as an example in the coursework that accompanies the Preparing for Success After Prison course. One of those products is knowing that I've got to develop my vocabulary. Why would I want to develop my vocabulary? Well, for me, that was important because I knew I didn't want to get out of prison and have people look at me as if I speak as if I just got out of prison. Because if I spoke like I just got out of prison or I'd been in prison my entire life, I would not have opportunities to prosper at the level I wanted to prosper. So I would encourage you to read through those strategies that helped me. And what was it? Well, every time I read a book, I would simply, if I came across a word that I didn't understand, I had a sheet and some index cards beside me. First, I'd start with a sheet, and I would write down the word that I didn't understand. And then I would, either right then or later, I would go to a dictionary, and I would look up the word, and I would write down the definition. And then after I wrote down the definition, I would write down the part of speech. Was this used, did the author use this word as a noun, as a verb, or as an adjective? Do I even know what a noun, a verb, and an adjective are? How do I define them? The more I invested in developing my vocabulary, the stronger I became. I remember being in prison and when I feeling really inadequate and unprepared when I was reading books, and I'd have to go to the dictionary every time I came across a paragraph. It might include 5 words that I didn't know. And I felt foolish because I didn't understand. But then I learned by holding myself accountable and saying, I am going to learn 100 new words every month. That's very specific. It is got a time element to it. I am going to learn 100 words, there's a quantity, within a month. So then I had a plan, an accountability plan. I'd write down the words. I'd write down the definition, and then I'd use a series of index cards that I would keep in my pocket. And in prison, as you know, you're frequently waiting around in lines. You're waiting in line to go to the chow hall. You're waiting in line to go to the commissary. You're waiting in line to go to medical, or you're waiting for a count to clear. Well, anytime you're doing that, you have an opportunity to either complain, an opportunity to daydream, or an opportunity to work towards your preparation for success in the future. And there may not be a lot of things to do, but you can absolutely work on developing a vocabulary. And I found that once I developed my vocabulary by about 500 words, I became infinitely more powerful in understanding literature. It's not that many. 500 words to learn, you only know right now a couple of thousand words. So if you add 500 new words to your vocabulary, it's like you increase your capacity to communicate by an exponential level. Because if you can learn to string all of these words into sentences and these sentences into paragraphs just the right way, you can do anything you want to do. You've heard the cliche that says, the pen is mightier than the sword. What that's telling you is the power of language. If we can use language effectively, we can advance our life. Language and our ability to use it effectively differentiates us from other forms of animals. We can communicate. We can pass on knowledge. We can share. So for me, that was one way to hold myself accountable. It was one way that the prison system didn't control me. Nothing could control how many words I learned or how many pages I wrote. Similarly, I could use that same strategy when it came to my reading schedule. I could keep, every time I'd read a book, I could write a book report. And that book report would also be very deliberate. At the beginning of the year, I could write out the date. I could write out the name of the, how many, first of all, I'd set a goal. How many, I'm going to read 75 books this year. I could then measure that. Well, there's 52 weeks in a year. So that means I have to read more, on average, almost a book and a half every week. That's really deliberate. But that's only part of it. I could also then take the next step of recording what I am reading. If you're in prison, I suspect that you've read some books, but how many books did you read? What did you learn from reading those books? How are those books going to influence your life and your success upon release? That's what an accountability log can help you do. So I learned that in prison. Every time I started a year, I would set a goal of how many books that I'm going to read. Then I would create this book report log. That's an accountability metric. Just like in baseball, a batting average is an accountability metric. If I said I'm going to read 52 books, then every week I can either make an assessment. Am I on track? Am I ahead? Or am I behind? So I'd write the date. I would write the title of the book that I read. I would write the name of the author of the book that I read. And I would write what number of book is it in my overall goal. So if I said I was going to read 52, and this is the 9th book I read, and if I am in the 9th week, then I'm on track. If I'm only in the 4th week, I'm ahead of schedule. If I'm in the 12th week, I know I've got to make an adjustment. That's what an accountability metric could help me do. But then what would I do? I would also always write a book report for every book that I read. And that book report was really quite methodical. It would only ask 3 questions. Number 1, why did I read, if it was this one, why did I read Earning Freedom? That's a question. Number 2, what did I learn from reading Earning Freedom? I can answer that question. Number 3, how will having read Earning Freedom contribute to my success upon release? Those are 3 questions, and I can choose how much I want to write in response. If I do that for every book that I read, is that a strength or is it a weakness? Is that accountability metric going to advance my prospects for success, or is it going to lead me farther away from success? What it does is it makes you more deliberate. It makes you focus on what you are doing today to become more successful in the days, weeks, months, years, and decades ahead. And I am not saying this is a strategy that I developed and use all by myself. It's what I have learned from every leader. I would encourage you to read a book by Elon Musk. Everybody pretty much knows Elon Musk now. I mean, he is the wealthiest man on the world, at least so it speaks. And he's the founder of Tesla. He is the founder of SpaceX. He is the founder of the Boring Company and many other organizations. But what he truly is a man who holds himself accountable. And in his book, the biography of Elon Musk, I remember reading a story about when he first came to North America from his home in South Africa, and he started to lay out his deliberate plan. And it's been years since I read that book, but I was always impressed by his effort to find mentors, to find people from whom he could learn. And I remember him writing about how he started reaching out, writing letters to 100 people he wanted to meet. He didn't know whether he was going to meet them or not, but he just took the initiative and said, if I could meet 100 people here in North America, these are the 100 people that I would like to meet, because these people can help advance me to become the successful person that I am determined to become. And he was only, I think, 19 or so at the time that he was doing this. But through that process, he met the chairman of, or not the chairman, I think the president or the CEO of the Bank of Nova Scotia. And through that him writing an unsolicited letter, one of hundreds of unsolicited letters, he succeeded in getting a meeting with that CEO. And that meeting led to a job offer for him to take as an internship with the Bank of Nova Scotia. And it was through that conversation that led him into a task through which he developed his learning. And that learning led to the company, which is now known as PayPal. He wanted to disrupt the finance industry. So Elon Musk, we can learn these enormous lessons from people who have succeeded on a monumental level. One of those lessons is the importance of developing accountability metrics. That lesson helped me get through 26 years in prison. It helped me stay productive through each of the 9,500 days I served, including my 8,344th day. That process is one I feel very passionately about passing along to other formerly incarcerated people. Don't wait for calendar pages to turn. Figure out how to make each day of the calendar work for you. And that, my friends, is a pathway to preparing for success after prison. I really want to thank you for being a member of the Prison Professors community. My name is Michael Santos, and I am determined to do everything I possibly can to improve outcomes for anybody who's going through the criminal justice system. But at the same time, I'm going to invite you. Sow seeds for success. Begin today by holding yourself accountable. Develop your own accountability metrics, and you'll have a better chance of success, which leads to our other course called Journaling 101. Make sure that you check out that course, and you'll see how this skill can help you prepare for success too. I'm Michael Santos, and I want to thank you for being a part of our community. I believe in you.